Imagine this. It's 1997. You go to your local Blockbuster, rent a movie, Apollo 13, forget to return it on time, and get hit with a $40 late fee. You're furious. You go home, you complain to your wife, and then, instead of just moving on like a normal person, you start thinking, there has to be a better way to rent movies. That man was Reed Hastings. And that one annoying moment, that $40 fine, planted the seed for a company that would one day be worth $150 billion. This is the story of how Netflix went from a tiny DVD by mail startup to one of the most powerful entertainment companies on earth. And the crazy part? Almost nobody believed it would work. Let's go back to 1997. The internet exists, but it's slow. We're talking dial-up. That sound? Yeah, that sound. Streaming video is basically impossible. Nobody's thinking about watching movies online. At the same time, a new technology is quietly taking off. The DVD. DVDs are small, lightweight, and here's the key detail, they can actually be mailed inside a regular envelope without breaking. Unlike VHS tapes, which are heavy and bulky, a DVD weighs almost nothing. Reed Hastings, a software entrepreneur in California, noticed this, and he had a simple idea. What if, instead of driving to a video store, people could just order DVDs online, have them mailed to their house, and return them whenever they wanted with no late fees? He teamed up with his friend Mark Randolph, and in April 1998, Netflix launched. But here's the thing. It wasn't even a subscription at first. In the beginning, Netflix worked just like Blockbuster. You paid per rental, around $4 per DVD, plus shipping. Nobody was blown away. The website was clunky. Delivery took days, and most Americans had never even heard of the company. By the end of 1998, Netflix had fewer than 300,000 customers. Blockbuster, meanwhile, had 60 million customers and 9,000 stores across America. Netflix looked like a tiny, struggling startup. But they had one idea that was about to change everything. In 1999, Netflix made a decision that most people thought was crazy. They scrapped the per rental model entirely. Instead, they introduced a flat monthly subscription, about $10 a month, and you could rent as many DVDs as you wanted with no due dates and absolutely no late fees. Think about what that meant for the customer. You pay once a month, you get DVDs in the post, you watch them whenever you want, you send them back whenever you feel like it, and nobody charges you extra. For families who used to rack up $20, $30, $40 in Blockbuster late fees every single month, this was a revelation. Subscriptions started growing. By 2000, Netflix had around 300,000 subscribers, paying every single month. Now, here's the moment in the story where you expect me to say, and then Netflix took over the world. But that's not what happened. Because in the year 2000, Netflix was losing money fast. The dot-com bubble had just burst. Investors were panicking. Tech companies were dying left and right. And Reed Hastings, desperate to save the business, did something that, looking back, is almost funny. He called up Blockbuster, he flew to their headquarters in Dallas, Texas, walked into the boardroom, and made them an offer. Buy Netflix for $50 million. We'll run your online business. You handle the stores. Together, we'll be unstoppable. Blockbuster's executives laughed at him, literally laughed. They sent him home empty-handed. 12 years later, Blockbuster filed for bankruptcy. But we'll come back to that. After being turned away by Blockbuster, Netflix went back to work. They cut costs, they improved the website, and they built something that nobody else had at the time, a recommendation algorithm. Here's why that mattered. When you returned a DVD, Netflix would ask, "What did you think of that movie?" You'd rate it, and Netflix would use that data to suggest your next rental. This sounds normal now because every app does it. But in 2001, 2002, this was revolutionary. Netflix wasn't just a DVD company anymore. It was learning who you were. It was getting smarter with every single movie you returned. And customers were getting hooked. By 2002, Netflix had 600,000 subscribers. They went public on the stock market. The business was finally stabilizing. Then in 2003, they turned their first profit. Small, but real. The company that Blockbuster laughed out of the room was now growing, profitable, and building something that nobody could see coming yet. Now we reach the most important moment in this entire story. By 2005 and 2006, something was happening to the internet. Broadband was spreading across America. Connection speeds were getting faster. For the first time in history, it was becoming theoretically possible to stream video online. Most companies ignored this. Reed Hastings didn't. In 2007, 9 years after launching, Netflix introduced online streaming. For the same monthly price you were already paying, you could now watch movies and TV shows instantly on your computer with no waiting, no postman, no DVD. The content library was small at first, only around 1,000 titles, and the quality wasn't perfect. But the concept was mind-blowing. Customers went from waiting 3 days for a DVD in the post to pressing play in 3 seconds. And Netflix still had the DVD business running in the background, which gave them cash to keep investing. Between 2007 and 2010, streaming subscribers grew from almost 0 to 20 million. But here's where Netflix did something that very few companies are brave enough to do. They looked at their own DVD business, the business that had made them, and they said, this is going to die. We need to kill it ourselves before someone else does. They called this strategy disrupting yourself. The DVD business was still making money, but Reed Hastings knew streaming was the future. So instead of protecting the old model, he doubled down on streaming completely. Some shareholders were furious. Some customers were confused, but history proved him right. By 2010, Netflix was America's biggest entertainment subscription service. But Reed Hastings had a bigger vision. He wanted Netflix to be everywhere on Earth. Between 2010 and 2016, Netflix expanded into Canada, Latin America, Europe, Australia, Asia, country by country, market by market. And then came the move that truly transformed Netflix from a distributor into an empire. In 2013, Netflix released House of Cards. This was the first time Netflix had made its own original show. And the way they made it was completely different from how Hollywood had always worked. Traditional TV networks would commission a pilot episode, test it with audiences, and only then decide whether to make more. Netflix did none of that. They looked at their data, they knew their subscribers loved films directed by David Fincher. They knew subscribers loved political dramas. They knew Kevin Spacey had a dedicated fan base. So they combined all three and gave the show a 2-season order before filming even started. No pilot, no testing, just pure, data-driven confidence. House of Cards was a global hit. It proved that Netflix could not only distribute entertainment, it could create it. After that, the originals came fast. Orange is the New Black, Stranger Things, The Crown, Money Heist, Squid Game. Netflix was no longer just a place to watch TV. It was becoming the place where the world's most watched stories were born. Let's talk about where Netflix is today. Over 230 million subscribers in more than 190 countries. Annual revenue of around $33 billion. A company valued at over $150 billion. All of it built from one idea. What if renting movies didn't have to be so annoying? But here's what I want you to take away from this story. Because it's not just a story about Netflix. It's a story about what happens when you refuse to accept the way things have always been done. Reed Hastings didn't invent movies. He didn't invent the internet. He didn't even invent streaming. But he watched how people behaved. He listened to what frustrated them. He kept asking, what comes next? Even when the current version of his business was working fine. And the companies that laughed at him, Blockbuster went bankrupt in 2010. Today, there is exactly one Blockbuster store left on Earth in Bend, Oregon. It runs partly as a tourist attraction. The executives who laughed Reed Hastings out of that Dallas boardroom are now a footnote in Netflix's origin story. So the next time you open Netflix and start scrolling through shows at 11 p.m. when you should probably be sleeping, remember that it all started with a $40 late fee, one frustrated customer, one simple question, one company that kept reinventing itself. From DVDs to streaming, to original content, to global domination. That is the story of Netflix. If you found this interesting, you're going to love the next video, because it's about the company that had every advantage Netflix didn't, and still managed to throw it all away. I'll see you there. Subscribe for more.